So we're on chapter 16. That's ridiculous, Jonah said. Impossible. Why? Chip said. Why? Chip asked. Jonah barely stopped himself from giving an answer that would have sounded like his dad. Because the government is set up to serve the people, not to ruin kids' lives by making them move. Instead, he mumbled, why would they care where Daniela McCarthy lives? How could it matter to them? And to direct her family to that exact house? Maybe one of Daniela's parents is a top secret scientist, Chip said, and some enemy is about to drop a bomb on their house, and so the FBI is moving them for their own safety. It's Daniela's name on the list, Jonah said, not her parents. Maybe that's just some sort of code, Chip argued. What about all the other 13-year-olds on the lists? Are all of our names some kind of code? Jonah asked. My parents aren't top secret scientists, I can tell you that, and nobody's ever tried to make us move. Still, Jonah felt a knot of anxiety in his stomach at the thought of moving. He lived his whole life in the same house. Well, his whole life since he'd been adopted. My mom would never agree to leave our house, not even if the president himself begged her to. He said she spent too much time babying the rhododendron bush in our backyard, and her roses, and her grapevines, and everything else. Jonah had never cared much about the rhododendron bush. He'd always thought Mom made way too much fuss about those gorgeous blooms. And do you think they're a little smaller than usual? Should I test the soil acidity again? But now he pictured Mom clutching the trunk of the bush while some official-looking government types tried to pull her away, them arguing, but you have to go, while she countered, I'll never, ever leave, never. The image was strangely comforting. Hey. Jonah looked up to see the bus driver in the aisle in front of them. He was glowering. Let me explain something to you two, he growled. I pull up to your bus stop, you get on the bus. I pull up to your school, you get off. It's not that complicated. Jonah realized they were at school now. He and Chip were the only kids still on the bus. Oh, sorry, he said, jumping up, grabbing his backpack. Maybe you want to go to the elementary school instead? The bus driver asked. He seemed amused now. That's my next run. This is the day when all the little kids stay on the bus extra long to learn bus safety. Maybe you need that just to learn to get off and on. No, that's okay, Chip mumbled, scrambling up behind Jonah. The bus driver stepped back between two of the seats to let them pass him in the aisle. He was laughing at them. What a jerk, Jonah muttered. As soon as they were on the sidewalk, other kids from other buses streamed past them into the school. He tried to blend into the crowd. At least no one else had been on the bus to hear the driver making fun of them. Chip grabbed Jonah's arm. After school, I'm going to call Daniela back, Chip said. Maybe she'll have calmed down by then. And I want to call back the other kids on the list to ask why they moved. You'll help now, won't you? Remember what you promised. I'll do everything I can to help you. Excuse me. Chip's imitation of Jonah's voice was frighteningly accurate. I didn't know what I was promising, Jonah wanted to argue, and that was last week. I thought I'd just have to quote from What to Tell Your Adopted and Foster Children. Not solve mysteries, not see ghosts, not call strangers, not figure out the FBI, not worry about my own past. Chip's blue eyes were pleading and desperate. Catherine's all right and everything, but she's too cheerful about all of this, Chip said. She thinks it's fun. What's wrong with fun? Jonah wanted to ask, but he knew exactly what Chip meant. All right, Jonah said reluctantly, after school. The day dragged. Jonah couldn't concentrate on any of his classes. More than once, his teachers noticed and said, Jonah, are you with us? Or, Jonah, didn't you hear me the first 5 times I asked everyone to open their books? On the bus ride home, Jonah made sure he and Chip didn't get too distracted. They were the first ones off the bus when it reached their stop. Catherine bounced up eagerly behind them. How many names do you want to call today? She asked. I don't have gymnastics tonight, and I did all my homework in study center, so I'm ready to start dialing. Chip and Jonah exchanged glances. Well, see, I've got to get the mail first, Chip said weakly, and then... No problem, I can wait, Catherine said, grinning. She followed the boys to the Winstons' brick mailbox. Chip took his time about reaching in, drawing out the stacks of letters and magazines and junk mail. Jonah felt like telling him, look, if you think Catherine is going to get bored and leave, forget it. Once she's into something, she never gives up. Chip was so completely into his act trying to get rid of Catherine that he just stood there, staring at the stack of letters. Maybe it wasn't an act. Chip? Jonah asked cautiously. Is something wrong? Jonah remembered the lists and ghosts and the FBI weren't all they had to worry about. He remembered that letters had been the first signs of strangeness. Chip? Jonah repeated. Chip held up a letter. It's addressed to me. There's no return address, he said. But it's not like the others. He was right. The letter was in a smaller envelope, the kind used for invitations, and Chip's address wasn't typed, but written in firm, grown-up handwriting like a teacher's. Open it, Catherine said excitedly. Let's see what this one says. Jonah turned to glare at his sister. What's wrong with her? Wasn't she scared at all? How could she act so thrilled when he felt almost paralyzed with dread? Catherine missed his glare because she was snatching the envelope out of Chip's hand, ripping the letter open. Whoa, she breathed. What is it? Jonah asked. He discovered he wasn't completely paralyzed. He could crane his neck and peer over Catherine's shoulder. The letter was on a was on a piece of generic white paper. Unfolded, it said, You contacted me at 8:35 p.m. on Monday, October 2nd. I was not at liberty to discuss anything with you over the phone. If you call back, I will deny that I sent this letter. I will refuse to tell you anything more. But if it is safe, I will meet you in Conference Room B at the Liston Public Library at 3 p.m. on Saturday, October 7th. Then we can talk. Do not attempt to contact me otherwise. This is the only way. And there was no signature. Now, when I'm reading this book, I'm hearing words that I think maybe you don't know. So maybe there are words on this page that you want to write in, or in this chapter that you want to write in, like paralyzed or generic, maybe even crane his neck. Okay. Thinking as I was reading this book to you, what words did you hear that you maybe not know and you could write in your word list? Also, thinking about who this could be. What evidence do we have to suggest who this might be? Okay. Text evidence to suggest who might be writing this letter on generic white paper. All right. You're going to have 2 questions to answer today, and also want you to write down words that you do not know into your interesting word list.